Hi, everybody. My name is Chris Zarnick, and I am happy to bring this session to you today at IRE's virtual event for 2021. I hope that sometime in the fall we can all be together again. But for today, what I'd like to do is present to you this topic, which is retaining and developing talent in your organization is as easy as SME. For those of you who haven't met me, my name is Chris Zarnick, and I'm honored to be the subject matter expert on recruiting and retaining talent for the National Roofing Contractors Association. And some of you maybe even 2 years ago received a copy of that book, Winning the War for Talent. And what I'm going to talk about today really builds on the ideas on that book with zero cost solutions for you to recruit, retain, and develop great talent in your organization. So through the magic of technology, I'm going to try and share my screen. See how that works. And away we go. So again, this session is called Winning the War for Talent. Retaining and developing employees is as easy as SME. And in this case, SME stands for creating a subject matter expert model inside your organization. Before I get started, I want to really ask you this question, because in this session, I'm going to give you some ideas, and I promise you that they're going to be very low or mostly zero cost ideas, but they do take time. And because as a business owner or the president of a company, time is your most valuable resource, I want to make sure that you have a really good idea of what it costs you to not have the right employee in your organization. What does it cost you to lose an employee from your organization or to have a position open in your organization for any given annual year? And that cost is not just in dollars and cents, it's certainly in profit, because if you pay somebody $20 an hour, you might be billing them out at $45 an hour. But what also is the cost of you not having a person in that role on your other employees? What's the actual cost of overtime? Maybe there are some errors or omissions that happen because we are understaffed and we don't have the right people in place. Maybe you've even had the bad experience of missing an order because you didn't have the right people, or people left your organization when you were counting on them to do great work for you. And also, if you don't have enough people in your organization, or if you don't properly retain and develop people in your organization and you have people leave, you might be putting people on overtime and you might be burning out great employees from your organization. Now, each of you can figure out on your own exactly what the cost of this is, but I will tell you that for the average entry-level roofing technician, the number is somewhere between $65,000 and $90,000 a year. And so while I'm not going to ask you to spend any money putting this process in place, when you think about whether it's worthwhile spending the time, think about that number of $65,000 to $90,000 a year, and you'll be able to balance spending the time to make sure that you retain and develop great people inside your organization. Well, why is this so important? Well, I've spent the last almost 3 years screaming from every mountaintop I could possibly find that a lack of talent, a lack of people in organizations is going to be the biggest issue facing businesses. As a matter of fact, for the next 10 years, the number one challenge for American businesses will be the inability to recruit, engage, and retain talent in their organization. And that's not my opinion. See, I'm a pretty binary guy. I like on and off. I like zeros and ones. I like things that I can measure. And so I love math. And so in this particular case, not having enough talent is not only my opinion, it's also a mathematical certainty. Let me display that for you right now. Here's why you're having difficulty finding great people. In 5 years ago or 8 years ago, you might have posted the exact same job, and that you might have gotten 25 or 50 applications and been able to choose 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 great people out of that pool of people that you got, and then you simply hired them and went about your business. But something changed 4 or 5 years ago, didn't it? you were putting out the exact same job ad, but instead of 50 applicants, you got 15. And of those 15 applicants, you would be lucky to have 3 of them that actually fit the qualifications that you were looking for. As a matter of fact, what has gone on in many organizations across the country is that we are currently hiring people today to fill roles that we would have never even considered 5 years ago because we don't know how to find talent. So why is it so hard to find talent today? Well, the numbers make it absolutely obvious. I won't spend a lot of time here, but the numbers that should strike you right now is that the baby boomer generation, the generation that you have been hiring out of for the last 25, 30, or 40 years, had 75.4 million people in it. The next generation, Generation X, has 65.9 million people. That's 9.5 million less people. So if it feels like there are less people in the labor marketplace, there are. There are 9.5 million less people to fill those roles that you need. And so one of the things that I have to get across and really want to get to you today is that this is a mathematical certainty. There will be winners and losers in the war for talent in the next 8.5 years. My goal is to make you one of those winners. So in order to understand how we're speaking to people and how we're going to retain them and how we're going to develop them, the first thing for you to understand is that you have people from 4 different generations in your organization right now. And as in terms of retaining them and developing them, there are 4 concepts, one for each of those generations, that will be much more important to them than any of the others. Let's go through those 4 generations right now. And when you're thinking about even retention strategies, much less development, these are the ideas to keep in mind. You have a large number of baby boomers, my guess is they're 55 years of age or older. And the number one most important thing for them is security. They're not, frankly, as interested in developing their skills and abilities. They grew up in a generation where having any job, having a sure thing job, was the most important thing for them. So retaining baby boomers is all about ensuring them that if they are the right fit for your organization, that they know that you are with them there today and you're there tomorrow. Security is the word to use in retaining baby boomers. The next generation, Generation X, you have people who are 38 to 54 or now almost 56 years old. And Generation X is the generation immediately after the baby boomers. You might have a large number of your senior tradespeople or your managers or your supervisors who fall into this age category. And for Generation X, the most important term when we talk about retaining them, how do we want to make them stay? It's that word significance. Do I matter? Do you see me? Are you glad I'm here instead of someone else? What might surprise you as I travel the country teaching these concepts to companies is that you don't retain Generation X people by throwing more money at them. You retain them by having touch points with them once or twice a week, giving them interesting projects to work on, but you identify with them and you have one-on-one contact with you, and you let them know how happy you are that they are at your organization and how important they are to the organization as a whole. So if you have Generation Xers who are 38 to 56 years old now, and you want to retain them, the number one thing you need to do is make sure that you have 2 touch points, or their supervisor or manager has 2 face-to-face touch points, or even an email touch point with them, making sure that they know that they're an important part of your organization. The third idea is millennials, and millennials we've been talking about millennials, it seems like, for almost 20 years. And they're this mystical, magical group of people. Actually, we have had them in the workforce for the better part of 17 years, and they're not mystical at all. But what I've learned is that the number one most important thing, if you want to retain millennials, is the concept of freedom. But I'll warn you, it's probably not the freedom that you had come to mind immediately when I said the word. Many people have the false idea that freedom from millennials means I only have to work 3 days a week, or I get to work from home, or I can work any hours that I want. That has not been my experience at all. As the career services manager for the largest technical college in the state of Wisconsin, I had some 40,000 millennials come through my offices to try and figure out where to go work after their technical college experience. And what I learned from them is that the freedom that they're looking for is freedom to solve problems creatively. This freedom that they need is all about being challenged on a regular basis, being put on difficult or interesting projects. Listen, this generation has had through Google, they don't know a world without Google. And so in this particular case, if they are just coming and do the same job all day long, every day with no learning, no advancement, no difficult problems to solve, they will find another way. And what's important for you to understand about millennials as well is if you're a baby boomer like me, losing your job and finding another one was an extraordinarily scary experience. But millennials, because they have LinkedIn and because they have Monster and because they have Indeed, losing your job or changing jobs for a millennial is simply an interesting problem to be solved. And so what we want to do is, and you'll be able to see this in the subject matter expert model, we want to give them difficult projects to work on or topics to become experts on so they stay interested in your organization. And lastly, some of you are recruiting right now into Generation Z. Generation Z are those people who are under 21 years of age. And for those people, purpose is the word that they most want to associate with their work. In this particular case, purpose means, does my work make somebody's life easier or better? Does my work make somebody's life easier or better? In this particular case, I will quote my good friend Charles Antis from California, who has Generation Z people coming to him in droves because their tagline for their company is keeping families safe and dry. That speaks to a Generation Z people because they understand the direct link between their work and making somebody's life easier or better. Now that you understand kind of the four different generations that we may have to speak to them differently, let's talk about how we actually interact with them. So I want to talk to you about initially why people leave your organization. If we are first and foremost talking about retention, before we even get to development, we want to make sure that people stay involved, and we need to understand why they actually leave an organization. I've had the rare opportunity to sit face to face across the table for more than 3,000 job changers over the last 20 years. And I can tell you that they've been very clear about the reasons they left an organization and what was important to them about the next organization that they went to. So it was absolutely clear, not only from their comments, but from all the SHRM, Society for Human Resources Managers surveys that are out there, that the number one reason that people leave an organization is a poor working relationship with their direct supervisor or their manager. Again, the number one reason that people leave an organization is a poor working relationship with their direct manager or supervisor. Now, you probably don't have to go too far to think about the fact that that may have happened even in your life early on. When you left one job to go to another, it might very well have been that you had an abrasive supervisor, or you had a supervisor who didn't listen or wasn't interested in your thoughts or ideas. And as you can see, both in Generation X and with the millennials, being heard and being significant is a tremendously important thing to them. So what I want to encourage you to do is to, before you promote somebody into a leadership or management role, I want you to really think about what skills and abilities are necessary to promote somebody into a leadership role. I come from the paper industry. I started there sweeping the floor some 34 years ago. And I can tell you one of the mistakes that we forever were making was that we would take the most senior trimmer operator and we would make them a shift supervisor. Well, the skill sets are entirely different. That skilled trimmer operator might have been very, very good at doing measurements and trimming and changing the blade and all those other things, but didn't speak at all to their ability to interact with people, to make decisions, to communicate, to be creative, to have initiative. And so I want you to think about this idea that I'm about to give you for subject matter experts, because if you've made the mistake already, or if you have a supervisor or manager right now that you promoted because of their technical abilities, I want to let you know that the model I'm about to give you, you can use to develop their soft skills, their ability to lead, their ability to manage employees the same way we can develop it with other employees. But remember, the best supervisors have 5 traits: communication, creativity, initiative, problem solving, and teamwork or leadership. And so be careful when you promote people in your organization, because promoting one manager or supervisor that's not the right fit can cost you in terms of retention 4 or 5 perfectly good people because we promoted them for the wrong reasons. I also want to tell you that there are patterns that people have. When we talk about retention, I want to teach you how to identify when people are really sending a message out to you that they're thinking about leaving. And there are actually 4 very clear patterns, again, from all of those job seekers that I talked with, that they did as actions. They were trying to indicate to their employer that they were unhappy, or that they wanted some attention, or that something was wrong. And they gave these indications before they ever left. And here they are. So number 1 was short request time off during the week. Listen, people take off Mondays and Fridays. It happens. I did it. My guess is you may have done it as well. But when an employee once, twice, or maybe even 3 times in a month comes in a morning and says, hey, listen, I know it's short notice, but I need off between 1 and 3 o'clock this afternoon. When they're asking for a couple hours off in the middle of the week during the workday, it's a pretty good indicator that they might be talking to another organization. Think about it. When do you interview people when you're trying to bring on new people? My guess is you don't do it on Mondays and Fridays, and that Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday during the week, you're bringing people in to interview. And that's the same thing with your competitors or other people who are with organizations that might want to have your people come to work for them. So number 1 is when people ask for time off in the middle of the week with short notice, and they do it twice or 3 times in a month, it's a really good indicator that they might be out there talking to someone else. The second issue, or the second indication that they might be disheartened with or disenfranchised with your company and thinking about leaving, is that they stop disagreeing with you. What does that mean? Well, you have really valued employees right now that when you're about to make a decision, you're about to make a change, you're about to do something different, you run it past them, or you give them an idea of what you're about to do, and they say, oh, wait a second, Chris, hang on. Have you thought about this and this? Have you thought maybe we could present that in a different way so it would be received better? When those employees that have traditionally given you feedback, when they stop disagreeing with you, or they just start saying, yes, sir, or yes, ma'am, or whatever you want, boss, when those people start using those terms, what they're trying to say to you is, listen, I used to think that my opinion mattered to you, but it's clear through your actions that they don't matter to you anymore. So I'm just going to stop disagreeing with you and giving you insight or giving you advice. So when people stop disagreeing with you and just nod and smile, it's time for you to check in with them and see how their employment is going. Number 3, when employees deflect or turn down development opportunities, it's time to check in with them. Most of your employees who are excited about working in your organization, if you talk to them about working on a new project or with a new customer or with a new machine or something more complicated or challenging, most often they're pretty excited about doing it. But when those employees who have typically jumped to the head of the line and raised their hand and said, I'd love to work on that project, when they start turning down or deflecting those opportunities, then it's probably time to check in with them. When you offer them an opportunity and they say to you, you know, I think Gail might be a better fit for that. I think her skill set and her abilities, Gail might be a better fit for that opportunity. It's time to pull that person in and ask them, how are things going? And are they frustrated at all with what's going on inside their organization? And then the fourth and the final way that your employees try to tell you that they're unhappy and thinking about leaving is they start to systematically exclude themselves from non-business related get-togethers. What do I mean by that? Well, if you guys go out for a burger and a beer every Thursday after work, and for the last 3 or 4 weeks, for whatever reason, the same person doesn't show up, and that's new for them, it's time to check in with them. If they stop coming to picnics, or they stop coming to get-togethers, they stop playing the football pool, or they stop playing fantasy football in your organization, it's probably time for you to check in with them, because what I've learned is that when people are thinking about leaving, they start to try and distance themselves from people in the organization to make it easier for them to leave. And so if people are excusing themselves from non-specifically work-related items, but it has to do with work, it's time to check in with them. Because again, the best employee that you can keep is the one that's already in your organization and doing a great job. We have so many organizations that are so focused on the problems of recruiting talent that they haven't spent enough time at focusing how to retain the great employees that they already have. Let's move on. Oops, sorry. Here we go. Well, I told you that the number one reason that people leave an organization is a poor working relationship with their direct supervisor, but the number two and close behind is a lack of engagement. People leave because they don't see a future for themselves in your company. If I am known for any saying across the country, it's this one: when people stop learning, they start leaving. Now again, wasn't that true for you? Think about the last time that you left an organization to go to another organization, or maybe it's the reason that you actually started up an organization and a business all of your own. Maybe you thought that you had learned everything you could, or you didn't know what the next step was going to be, or there was no place for you to get promoted to because the people in front of you were very young and there was no place to go, and so you decided to leave. Well, what I've learned is that with this subject matter expert model I'm about to show you, we can create what I refer to as a parking lot for talent. Talented employees don't leave if they know that they are on your radar screen for the next opportunity. If we can indicate to them that we see them, that we acknowledge that they're a great employee and they have a future that's bigger than what their job is currently right now, when we can indicate to them that clearly, they stay because they know that while it might not be today or tomorrow, that advancement and development and opportunity are just down the road for them inside your organization. So what we're going to try and fix with the subject matter expert model is this: when people stop learning, they start leaving. We're going to implement this subject matter expert model in the third year of employment for any of those employees that qualify for it. And again, this model that we're going to create is only for outstanding employees. It is not for everybody out there. I believe that I don't want people to tell me they want to be promoted. I want them to show me that they want to be promoted all day long, every day, doing their job to the best of their possible ability, being decent human beings, being good with people, coming up with ideas. Because the first 2 years of anyone's employment is simply showing that they're good at their job and also showing that they fit in the organization. So we're going to wait until the third year to offer up this subject matter expert model for development. Why the third year? Well, in year one, if you think back to your own experiences, you became comfortable with whatever job you got. the duties, the tasks, the responsibilities, the authority, and the deliverables of your job. You became functional in your job and did well at what you were being paid to do well. In year 2, after you learned the job, you started being curious about, how does my job interact with other parts of the company? How does doing my job well make somebody else's life easier? And how does doing my job not so well make somebody else's life harder? How does my work interact with the entire project? How does my work interact with our customers and our vendors? And we start to understand our place in the organization, and that's year 2. But in year 3, we know for sure statistically that year 3, especially for millennials, is the year that they leave if we don't provide them a development opportunity. How do we know that? Very clear statistics. Now, with 17 years of millennials in the workforce, the average millennial will leave companies, not jobs. They will change companies every 3.4 years. Now, I don't know about you, but if I was a business owner, that statistic would scare the living snot out of me. You put all that time and effort and money into hiring them and training them and getting up to speed just to watch them leave after 3 or 3.5 years. Well, now we know why. We know why because millennials are all about learning. Listen, they don't know a world without Google. They have been learning when they're having their oil changed. They're on YouTube learning how to do something else. There's so much information that's out there that's free. We know that these millennials are learning even when they're not at work, and we're gonna identify and use that idea to help them get involved in our industry and our organization and keep them engaged. So in year 3, we need to give them a way to show them that they've made it on our radar screen, that they've been identified as an outstanding employee that is deserving of growth. And in year 3, we're going to give them a way to do that. Well, how are we going to do that? This is the meat of the presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, I have taught this process now for a little over 2.5 years. And it has been successful every single time people do it this way. But you don't have to take my word for it. Once we get through this, I want you to think about if this had been available in your past organizations. Would you have qualified for it? Would you have gotten involved in it? And more importantly, what are the amazing benefits to the organization of creating a subject matter expert model inside your organization? So here's how it's going to work. The actual functional parts of this are, number 1, we're going to offer this opportunity to become a subject matter expert somewhere in their 3rd year of employment. This is an earned achievement. This is not for everybody, right? Because some people just want to come in and do their job and do a fine job and pick up their check, and their life is outside of work. But there are some people that due to their actions, the way that they interact with people, the way they get involved in projects, they show you all day long, every day, that they really want to be here. They really want to grow, and they really want to be a bigger part of your organization. So once again, a really important cog here is that this is not for every employee in their 3rd year. We identify becoming a subject matter expert as an aspirational thing for employees. We want people who were not selected to be subject matter experts to come to us and say, hey, why did they get that opportunity and I didn't? Because then we can explain to them what we expect from people to show themselves as an outstanding employee. Now, I've spent a little bit of time here, but I want to let you know that we want this to be an aspirational thing so that employees that want to get better not only know that there's a path to becoming a subject matter expert, but in order to get on our radar for opportunities in the future, the path to becoming a leader in our organization is through becoming a subject matter expert. You cannot become a manager unless you first become a subject matter expert. You cannot become a shift supervisor until you first become a subject matter expert. I'm old enough to have this idea in my head. I don't believe anything anybody says anymore, but I believe absolutely everything that they do. So when they show us for the first 2.5 or 3 years that they want to be on this path, then we're going to give them a place to shine. Before we even offer this to anybody else, there's some work to do by the leadership team. See, we don't just randomly choose different subjects for people to become an expert on. We want subjects. We want the leadership team to identify 15 topics that if our organization was wildly better at this, if we had an expert on these 15 topics, it would make a lot of our problems go away. It would give us a competitive edge. And the way I want you to think about this is we're going to have 15 topics. Half of them are going to be soft skills or people-based, and half of them are going to be technical-based, based in whatever industry that you're in, whether you are a roofer yourself or whether you're somebody who is providing materials for roofing or engineering or design services. We're going to choose 15 topics, half of them people-based and half of them technically based, that will serve your organization. How do we figure out what those 15 are? That one's really simple. What I want your leadership team to do is just put a pad of paper next to their desk, and for about 60 days, just write down problems that seem to come up over and over and over again. They're circular problems. They sometimes say, well, it's just part of the industry, or that's just the way it works. My guess is, though, that those issues that you're dealing with, somebody else has already solved in the industry or in a different type of organization. So in order to identify the 15 topics that are most beneficial for your organization, just track the issues that you have come up in your organization, whether they're person to person, whether they're interpersonal, whether they're technical, whether they're process, whether they're procedural. But just identify the things that make you crazy every single day. And those are the topics we're going to identify to create subject matter experts around, to have knowledge that can make those problems go away. So what would those sound like? Well, let me go back one time to this slide. And when we talk about people-based skills or people-based subject matter experts, they might be in areas like analytical problem solving. To be perfectly honest with you, if there was one class that I would have every high school student have to be taught, it would be analytical problem solving. It's life-changing for a person, and it's absolutely life-changing for an organization. We all think we're good problem solvers. I'm here to tell you that there's an entirely different level that not only solves the problem, but makes it go away long-term. We call that analytical problem solving. Some other topics that might be people-based, or as some people call them soft skills. I don't know if that's the right term, because I think they're way more important than to be called soft, but maybe win-win bargaining. Maybe you struggle with your customers in coming to resolution on contract terms or contract pricing. Maybe if you have that issue over and over again, if you had a systematic, process-oriented subject matter expert on win-win bargaining, then you would get better at it. It would make that problem go away. Active listening is another one that I think, believe it or not, we need a subject matter expert on. I say this with a smile on my face, but when was the last time an argument you had, either at work or at home, not a misunderstanding? Let me ask it again. When was the last time in your whole life, in your personal or your business life, when was the last argument that you had that was not a misunderstanding? It's always a misunderstanding. And so when we have a subject matter expert on active listening, we can teach that to people in the organization, have common terminology, ask questions that confirm the message and all those kind of things. There are lots of other ones, group facilitation, conflict resolution. But again, your guide of problems that happen over that 60 days that you tracked are going to guide you which problems are people-based. The other half of these are going to be technically based. Maybe, I don't know if it's a process issue, or if it's an issue with instructions, if it's an issue with machinery, with maintenance, I don't know what it is, But I want you to have half of this list technical topic areas that have to do specific to your organization. And the easiest way to identify what those are is to make a list of something we call industry specific terminology. What is industry specific terminology? Industry specific terminology are terms that you use in the roofing industry all day long, every day, but the rest of the world has absolutely no idea what those terms mean. They're terms that are specific to our industry. We talk about them, but the rest of the world never uses them ever. For example, in the maintenance area, I think about vibration analysis. Most of the people, if you ask them what vibration analysis was, they would think about their car tires and whether they were aligned. Well, that's not true at all. In maintenance circles, vibration analysis is an extraordinarily valuable skill where we track the vibrations of a bearing and we can identify when it's within its last 15 to 20% of its life. So we can replace that bearing on a schedule down instead of it going out in the middle of a production run. My guess is that you have half a dozen, maybe a dozen industry specific terms that surround the problems that you have in your organization all day long, every day, whether they have to do with application, whether they have to do with your vendors, whether they have to do with safety. Those are all technical skills. So again, this list that your leadership group is going to come up with, 15 topics, half of them people-based, half of them technical terms. And these are the 15 topics that we're going to make available for people to choose from to become our subject matter experts. Because again, if we can have a subject matter expert in each one of these areas, our problems can go away once and for all. So let's go back to this model. So first of all, after the leadership has identified the 15 topics, you're going to allow that employee that has earned the right, I can't say that enough times, that has earned the right as an outstanding employee. It's clear you want them in your future. It's clear that you want them in an expanded role at some point, but you just don't have a place to put them right now. You don't have anywhere to promote them to. The people in the roles that you'd normally promote them to, they're young, they're not going anywhere. And so you want to give them an idea that we see you, you're on our radar screen, and this is a way to do that. So we're going to let the employee, the potential subject matter expert, the outstanding employee, we're going to let them choose from that list of 15 topics that your leadership team created. It's really important that they choose this list, because if they don't choose the list, they're not going to be excited about it. They're not going to spend lots of time on it. They're not going to be interested in it. And more importantly, they're not going to be interested in teaching it to other people, because as you'll see, it's a really important part of this model. What's your commitment? Well, you're going to provide them 2 hours a week on company time to study all of the free resources that are available to learn about that topic. And I'm telling you, free information on these topics is as plentiful as you can imagine. Information is moving towards free. We couldn't have done this 15 years ago. 15 years ago, to create a subject matter expert, you would have had to have somebody like me come in and spend a week there teaching somebody to be the subject matter expert. Or you need to send them off somewhere for a week to get that training. But now there's so much free information just with Google, YouTube, sites like the Khan Academy, K-A-H-N, Khan Academy, Coursera, C-O-U-R-S-E-R-A, Coursera, and then all of the vendors that you have their own training. All you have to do is ask them for it. But we are going to access through the internet only free training and have them learn everything they possibly can about that topic. What's fascinating is if we allow them to choose their topic, my experience is that you'll give them 2 hours a week on company time to study it, but they will study it because they already like it. They will study an additional 4 hours just when they're sitting around at home or having their oil changed. Well, how do we know that this person actually has become a subject matter expert? Well, we're going to give them 6 months to study all the free materials that they can possibly imagine. And again, don't forget your vendors as an amazing supply for information about their products, their services, safety, all kinds of things. That's what vendors provide in order to get you to choose them instead of their competitors. But after 6 months, how do we know that that person actually did the work and actually is a subject matter expert? Well, Stephen Covey is my hero, frankly, in the world of business training, God rest his soul. And one of his lesser known ideas, by the way, Stephen Covey, the author of a little book you may have heard of, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, sold some 17 million copies in 20 plus languages. One of his lesser known ideas is that if you want to learn any topic at its deepest level, prepare to teach it to someone else. So what we're going to do is we're going to give that potential subject matter expert, the person who earned the right, we're going to give them 6 months to study it and learn everything they can about it using free resources. And then they're going to teach that topic at a very deep level to their direct supervisor or manager. That's right. Your supervisor and manager is about to become a subject matter expert on the 15 topics most critical for your organization and have to do no work to do it, because your aspiring subject matter expert will be teaching it to them. So you can see not only is there growth for the employee, but with no work and no cost, there's also growth for your managers and supervisors in the areas that are most important to your organization. After they teach it to their manager and the manager says, yep, they're a subject matter expert, I'm really impressed with them, we're going to give them something. It's really important to recognize them some way. Give them the title subject matter expert. Give them a on their office or wherever they are, have a sign on their door. Give them something. Give them a cookie. Give them a gold star. Give them a raise. I don't care what you do, but we have to really make it clear to them that we see you in the work you did, that it was really important to us. But the most important thing is that we have to use their skills at least once a month. Listen, you've all been in organizations that had the program of the month, right? Those organizations that, we get very excited about a concept, but as the world closes in on us and we get some frustration with our projects or our customers or whatever's going on inside our organization, those really important programs just fall to the side. In order to not make that happen, we're going to make sure that we use the subject matter expert at least once a month. Find a way. So if this person is conflict resolution, if they become your subject matter expert on conflict resolution, what I want you to do is next time you have a conflict between employees or departments or managers, you pull them off their job when the time is right. You pull them off their job and you have them work through the subject matter expert process for conflict resolution and help those two people or those two departments come to a resolution. But we got to use them on a monthly basis or this thing will fall by the wayside. The easiest way to do that, by the way, the easiest way to use your subject matter experts once a month is that we ask them to teach their topic, but just at a very basic level. We're going to have them teach it to everybody in the organization through a series of lunch and learns. They're not going to learn it at a really deep level. We don't really have time for that. But when we start giving everybody an idea of what these processes are, and what you'll find is that all these subject matter expert areas all have process behind them, which means that we use the same ideas, we have used the same language, we use the same process. We start thinking, everybody in the organization start using the same words. We have common language. We solve problems in a common way. We resolve conflicts or we come to a conclusion for win-win bargain in a common way. And when we start using common language, and when we start speaking and thinking in the same ways, misunderstandings go away. Frustration goes away. Missed orders go away and difficult interactions between people, they start to go away. Now here's the magic. There's two real pieces of magic here. Number one is, how much did it cost? Remember, you were really worried about developing your employees because we had to send them to some expensive place for a week and they'd be off their job and you didn't know how good the quality of the training was going to be. How much does this cost? If you do it right, the answer is Zero. How much work was in it for HR? You know, in HR, when we develop people, HR used to have to track where they were and what chapters they're on and check in with them. How much work is there for HR? If you do it right, the answer is zero. How much work is in it for the supervisor or the manager? Again, I would argue that it's zero. And not only is it zero, but more importantly, your supervisors and managers become subject matters themselves. Over a period of time, they become subject matters themselves on the 15 topics that are most important to your organization. You will be developing your managers and supervisors with no work at all in the areas that are most important to your organization. And the last thing I'll tell you about the subject matter expert model that I have experienced is that when somebody becomes a subject matter expert, when we turn them into a teacher, when we turn them into a trusted source of information to other people in the organization, they don't leave. Remember, people don't leave for money. Assuming we're a good employer and we're paying them some reasonable wages based on, you know, what the normal wages are in your place, people don't leave for money. They leave because they're bored. They leave because they're stuck. They leave because there's no place for them to go. So when one of your valued employees gets tapped on the shoulder by another employer, and they say to that other employer who's trying to hire them away, well, do you have a subject matter? Can I be a subject matter expert? And your competitor says, no, we don't really have that model here. No, I think I'll stay. I love the feeling of people coming to me and asking for my help. I love the feeling of being a teacher. I love the feeling of being called in on projects or difficulty or questions that really are difficult to solve, and I can help be a focal point in how to solve that issue. Subject matter experts don't leave. And what we've done then is we've created what I refer to as a parking lot for talent. In other words, we don't have to promote them into a role. We don't have to create a role just to promote them into so that they will stay. The subject matter expert model creates a parking lot for talent. They know you see them. They know that they are important to the organization. They know that you value them as an employee. And they know that while their time might not be today, that their time is coming. And what could be better, by the way, than building the future leaders for your organization by having them focus on becoming subject matter experts on the topics that are most important to your organization? So as you can see, it takes some time. It takes a little bit of effort on your part. But after that's done, after you come up with the list of 15 topics, this is all on the employee. It's on the employee to earn the right to become a subject matter expert. It's on the employee to choose the topic they want to talk about. It's on the employee to learn over 6 months everything they can to become a subject matter expert. It's on the employee to teach it to their manager, and then it's on the employee to teach it to everybody else in the organization and make this knowledge available to everybody. The last thing I want to do is to have to help you find a new employee because a great employee left because they didn't feel well utilized. Listen, it doesn't help you at all to pour water into a bucket if you've got a retention hole at the bottom of the bucket and they're slowly seeping out there. Remember, the number 2 reason people leave is because they don't see a path for themselves. And this model will give you that opportunity. Zero cost, virtually no work, creates a pathway to leadership for people in the organization. And most importantly, those employees don't tell you they want to have a bigger responsibility in the organization. They've already shown you day by day, step by step. And so when you're ready to promote them, you know exactly who they are and how they're going to act. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Listen, an hour is a long time to listen to anybody. I want to let you know that I am excited to talk about talent in the roofing industry. My job is to teach organizations how to be really much better at talent You can always reach me at chrisarnick.com. Even if you just want to talk, like even if you just have a question from the book, that's totally fine. It is my honor to serve as the subject matter expert on recruiting and retaining talent for the National Roofing Contractors Association. And if I can help you in any way retain and develop talent using this model, just give me a call. I'd love to have that conversation. Thank you for choosing this session, and I hope you have a great time at Virtual IRE 2021.